Hi friends, Shay here. So today I'm here to wrap up my book reading in April so far. I am doing a separate dedicated 30 and 30 vlog for all the manga, so you're not going to see any of the manga here. I did read some comic trades, but I did a dedicated review for those, so I will leave that linked in the corner for you guys to check out. So we're just going to be strictly talking about the books today. So I'm going to start at the top of the stack. Most of what I read is physical. I will have a few digital titles that I'll pull in at the end, but let's dive in. So first up, we have one of my buddy reads. I buddy read this with Dylan over at Dynamic Dylan and Lindsay from Lindsay Tut, and that is The Eternal Highlander by Lindsay Sands and Hannah Howell. Essentially, this is a bind-up of two Highlander stories, and in this one, it was fine. I think I ultimately settled on like a 3.5 stars. Hannah Howell's story was really hard for me to get into because the language writing was really tough to read. I felt like it took way more concentration than I usually like to put into my casual buddy reading time. And so the Lindsay Sands story was great. I really enjoyed it. But the Hannah Howell one was kind of a slog and really hard for me to get through. I think if you listen to this on audio, you probably wouldn't have the same problem. But yes, like I say, I think I ultimately settled on a 3 because I really didn't enjoy the Hannah Howell story, but I did enjoy the Lindsay Sands story. So that's kind of where I'm at with that. So just know that. Next up is the other buddy read I did with Lindsay, and I think I'm just going to be giving up on this author, and that is The Duke Buys a Bride by Sophie Jordan. I did not really enjoy this. It was just a very bland, middle-of-the-road historical for me. So I gave it like 3 stars, and it was just fine. Like, it didn't do anything great. It didn't do anything to overly offend me. But I think I honestly, really looking back on it, I wouldn't give any of the Sophie Jordans I've read more than like a 3 or a 3.5 star. So I think I just need to be done with Sophie Jordan. It's not anything personal. It's just not an author I get along with. Up next, I did dip into a paranormal, and that is No Rest for the Wicked by Kresley Cole. I love Kresley Cole. I love this book so much, even more than I loved A Hunger Like No Other. And this is just paranormal gold. If you have not tried the Immortals After Dark series, I understand the hype now. I really loved this. Sebastian was amazing. Katerin was fierce. I love them both. I love the whole, this has that tournament arc kind of feel to it. And I was really vibing with it. Like, I was just getting down and getting along with it. So highly recommend continuing on with the series. Even if you didn't love book 1, I think this was a stronger book and an easier couple to love. So I think you'll enjoy this one better. Next, I have How to Catch a Duke by Grace Burrows. Coincidentally, my nails match. But in this one, this is, I believe, book 6 in the Roads to Riches series. This one has Abigail and Stephen, and it's one of those, like, engagement of convenience kind of situations. It was fun. Again, it didn't do anything, like, groundbreaking or earth-shattering, but I had a great time with it. I gave this one a solid 4. Definitely good. If you have not tried Grace Burrows' series, this series in particular, I highly recommend checking it out. Next actually happens to be my most recent book I finished, and that is Broderick by Katie Robert. Yes, this is book 2 in the Sabine Valley series. Yes, this book just came out. Did I pre-order it? Yes. Did I read it? Yes. Did I love it? Oh, yes. I love Broderick. I love Monroe. I love Shiloh. Their dynamic was amazing. The like anger and frustration at the whole situation that they were all in was really palpable. And to watch them work through that and come together as a throuple was magnificent. I really enjoyed it. And I really look forward to the future of this series. A big thing happens in here that will affect the impact on the rest of the series. So I am seriously excited for the next book, which is Cohen's book. I was already excited for Cohen's book, but then I read the end of this book and I'm like, oh crap, what's that going to do to the dynamic of Sabine Valley? This is like a big game changer. And so now I'm like super on board. But if you have not, if you have not heard of this series, this is a Seven Brides for Seven Brothers inspired retelling where they end up in thruples, and it's amazing. There's revenge and Like, it's very political while also being very steamy, and it's gloriously amazing. Highly recommend. And yes, the bisexual energy in this book was great. Both of our ladies are really bi and really just amazing. I love it. All right, next, I basically consumed the entirety of the series that's out. I don't know if we're going to get any more, but I consumed this series. So the first book is Empire of Sands, in which we follow Meher, and she is of Umberthi blood. And basically that means she can commune with the spirits of this world, and that makes her a heretic and all sorts of awful things. And because she shows this side of herself rather than suppressing it, she ends up kind of enslaved to this man called the Maha, who's kind of their like religious leader who keeps the empire safe, as he claims, but that has major ramifications. And so she's basically forced into a marriage, and the other guy is forced into a marriage as well. I can't remember his name at the moment. I don't know why. But anyways, so they're bound to each other, and it like visibly shows on their skin. It scars them. So it's just so good. And then after this, we have Meher's sister, Arwa. We have her story here that takes place about 10 years later after the ending of Empire of Sand. So the Empire is in a very different place than it is with Meher's story. But Arwa is basically, she's a widow now, and she ends up coming back to the palace and working with the prince to try to help put the kingdom back together, in a sense. Because the kingdom's kind of in shambles after the effects of book 1. And through that, she and this prince get to know one another, and they have a really sweet background romance. But the political side of this, because you see the inner workings of the palace, it was so good. I love this series a whole lot. I gave both of these 5 stars. They're fantastic books. I highly recommend them. Like, please read them. Tasha Suri's amazing. Anything she comes out with, I'm going to be reading. All right, next up, I have Master of Crows by Grace Draven. So in this one, honestly, like, I really enjoyed this, but I can understand how someone wouldn't enjoy it. Our main male lead is a little hard to love, and he's really, really rough around the edges. So, like, I can understand why someone wouldn't necessarily love this book. But for me, it worked really, really well. Had a little bit of more of a severe Beauty and the Beast kind of vibe to it. And I was just getting along with it really, really well. So I know Entreat Me is a true, like, Beauty and the Beast retelling, which I do plan to go back and read. But I know there's also a sequel to this, so I do think I'm going to continue because I really enjoyed the characters, and I want to see what happens now after the effects of this book. So, again, I gave this a solid 4. I really enjoyed it. Sorry, I'm kind of blitzing through these. I don't have too much to say about them. As always, my Goodreads is linked down below, and I should be current by the time you guys see this with all my reviews. Next, I have Lycanthropy and Other Chronic Illnesses by Kristen O'Neill. Now, I know this book has been getting a lot of flack for the cover especially. I have to agree with the criticisms of the cover. I hope this book gets a cover do-over, because I think the cover and the assumptions people make about the cover are harmful and will hurt the impact of this book. But essentially, this book is about a girl who has chronic Lyme disease, and it's about how she makes friends with a group of people who all have chronic illness. They have this beautiful Discord server where they all check in with each other at least once a week. They talk. Anytime someone's having a tough time, they pop in there. They get the support that they need. And this book had a lot of amazing things going on with it. Yes, one of the people in the chronic illness group has lycanthropy. So basically they're a werewolf, and once a month they turn into a wolf. And so this is about our main character, Priya, taking care of her friend who is this werewolf, and about them kind of falling in love. But I think the chronic illness part of this book is what makes this book so good. I was really Like, I've tabbed things that made me laugh, things that made me emotional. Like, this book really packs a punch. And I think it's a good punch. Like, I would love for more people who have chronic illnesses to give this book a try, just because I can't speak for the representation other than I loved the companionship and the camaraderie that they were all showing together. Kristen O'Neill does have a chronic illnesses, so this is own rep for the chronic illness rep, or own voices for the chronic illness rep. So please hate the cover all you want, but please give the book a try. I do think that this book did a lot of things right, and I would hate for people to not pick up such a beautiful book because a publisher made a really bad choice on the cover. So there's that. So please give this book a try. I ended up giving it a solid 4 because I can't ignore some of the things. I mean, Priya is of Indian descent and Kristen O'Neill is not. So I can't speak for the representation there, but from what I've seen in other reviews, a lot of people were upset about that. So in some instances like this for poor white authors, it's like a damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of situation. So I don't know how to feel. But I do have to say that the chronic illness rep in this book is definitely worth reading it. All right, and the last book that I physically have that we're going to talk about is A Clockwork Dynasty by Daniel H. Wilson. So in this one, it basically, I ended up giving it 3 stars and I'm not going to keep it. Here's why. I actually had the audiobook and I also returned the audiobook for this one. And basically it glorifies the reign of the Tsar in Russia, and I didn't love it for that. The rest of the concept was really cool and I enjoyed that part of it, but I just can't ignore that part. I tried to put it behind me, but I'm like, you're glorifying this dictator and that's not okay. So yeah, I gave this book 3 stars and it was fine, but I don't recommend it. I think it was definitely a product of its time. I know this book is quite a few years old, and some of the people that blurbed this book, like, are known people, known authors that don't treat people well. So I'm just going to let this book go and it's going to be fine and everything's good. Alrighty, so let's chat about the things that we haven't chatted about yet. So first up, I have The AI Who Loved Me by Alyssa Cole. This was a really fun, short audiobook about neighbors, and one is very clearly an AI and how the creator of the AI, like, basically ends up murdered and it causes problems, and it's just this really fun, these two neighbors getting to know one another kind of situation, and I really loved it. It was really just a great time. And like I said, it's a really quick listen, so if you just want something really quick and in between, it was a really great one for me. I really enjoyed it. Okay, next up we have The Marriage He Demands by Brenda Jackson. I got an arc of this. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a lot of fun. Solid 4 stars. It definitely has this enemies to lovers feel to it. Basically, this guy, he didn't have a good relationship with his mother. His mother passes away and she's left him half of a property that he's sharing with the person who was kind of like in her life. And so it's this whole like them getting to know one another, what to do about the property kind of situation. And there's meddling people and it was really good. I recommend it. And I will definitely be continuing on with the series. Next, we have The Paris Apartment by Kelly Bowen. Really, let's be honest, I DNF'd this book. I love Kelly Bowen's like normal historical romances. This one was more historical fiction, but it was glorifying this woman who fell in love with a Nazi soldier, and I thought we were past that point in our life, and so yeah, I didn't really end up enjoying this one. I know it's a great book out there for somebody, but it did not work for me, so I DNF'd it. Next up, we have a new love, and that is His Beauty by Jack Harvin. Y'all know me and Beauty and the Beast retellings anyway, but this was fantastic and really good, and I really loved every moment of this. Like, I had a hard time stopping reading it because I just had the best time reading it. It's really good. Highly recommend. It's a good smutty time. He stays a beast physically, but is less of a beast in every other way. So yes, very good. Sweet Hand by N.G. Peltier, or Peltier. I'm not sure how they pronounce it. This one was so cute. This was kind of like a childhood friends to lovers. There's lots of baking involved and just overcoming. It also has an almost enemies to lovers things because they bickered with each other all growing up and they still bicker now. But it was so sweet and so cute. Solid 4 stars. Highly recommend. Had a great time. We've got 2 more to talk about. So first up, I have To Be Alone With You. This one's by Jody Slaughter. This was my first Jody Slaughter. This is an age gap romance in which it takes place during quarantine, and a lot of people were like worried about it when they first heard about it, but we know now that it's a really good quarantine book and the way it's all handled is really, really good. So definitely check this one out. Highly recommend. Solid 4. I could have taken a whole like longer book about it, but the novella length worked just great as well. And then last but not least, we have Meant to Be Immortal by Lindsay Sands. This is an Arjano book. This was my first Arjano book. And I would give it like a 3.5 stars. Like, it was fairly good. I enjoyed it. I think if I was more invested in the world and had read more books in the world, I probably would have enjoyed it more. But since I hadn't, I was still able to follow along pretty well and did end up enjoying it. But I do think you probably need more context. So I would find someone who's read earlier in the series and find a good entry point. I'm going to be doing some research on that myself. So anyways, thank you guys for watching. Let me know in the comments down below something that you've loved that you've read so far this month, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.